I was very impressed with President Lai. You know, whenever you have a leader, you want a leader that speaks the truth. You want a leader that's bold. You want a leader that shows courage. And you want a leader that is determined to protect their people. I saw every bit of that in President Lai. His ability to call out the threats of China, and his ability to not just sit back, but to actually be proactive in how to protect the Taiwanese people was impressive. And he does it with a very good attitude. He does it with the fact that we've got a lot of work to do and we're going to keep on doing it. And so, you know, whether it was President Lai or his administration, everyone I found to be very focused. I found them all to be determined. I found them all to be mission oriented. And I found them all to be on the same page. And I think that shows the signs of a good, strong administration. I think Taiwan deserves full status at the UN. But I think the least we should get is observer status. That's the main thing, is think about the hypocrisy that the United Nations fights every day for what they claim as human rights. Yet you're going to act like 24 million people don't exist? And here, they are all saying that they don't want to say anything about Taiwan because of a UN resolution years ago. The UN resolution never mentioned Taiwan. So why did you allow the Chinese Communist Party to hijack a resolution and claim it's about Taiwan? I want the United Nations to show me in that resolution where it mentions Taiwan. And that is why they should be giving status to Taiwan. It's because it's not even listed in the resolution. Thank you. Good morning. You know, we came to Taiwan for multiple reasons. I think the main reason is that I think it's important that not just Americans, but that the world pay attention to what's happening around us. We see a lot of countries right now in chaos. We see a lot of countries that are distracted. And so I started in June, I went to Israel, and it was very much about telling the story of what was happening in Israel, what we saw between what happened on October 7th and what happened since then, and a lot of things that weren't necessarily said in the media. We wanted to get that out. But the overall reason was I wanted to show Americans why they needed to care. And so this is the reason why I am in Taiwan. I want to show Americans why they should care about Taiwan. And I think that all you have to do is look at the fact that what are the 24 million people in Taiwan experiencing every single day? And I would ask any free country to tell us if they would put up with the same thing. I mean, you look at the fact that they go through 30 million cyber attacks a month. 30 million that come across. They have harassment by air and sea every single week. So they know what China wants them to feel, and they feel it. They have bullying from multilateral organizations to the point that they don't even acknowledge them at places like the United Nations or the World Health Organization. It is amazing to me that an organization like the UN, who prides itself on human rights, is willing to act like 24 million Taiwanese don't even exist. It's hypocritical. If they can go and acknowledge that Palestinians deserve observer status, it does make you question, why is it that they hold out and refuse to acknowledge that Taiwan exists? And so you look at all of these challenges that Taiwan goes through, and what was so amazing over these last few days is the spirit of the Taiwanese people. You would not know that they are under all of this harassment and bullying. They are living their days every single day trying to make today better than yesterday. They are amazing at innovation. They are amazing at manufacturing. They are amazing at moving forward in spite of the fact that they don't have many friends around the world willing to acknowledge the harassment that they have. And they are also living under a cloud of what happened with Russia and Ukraine. We have all seen firsthand what happens when an authoritarian government decides that they want to take over a free people. And when the Taiwanese people saw what happened to Ukraine, it woke them up that they could be next. And every free country needs to remember what it felt like the day Russia invaded Ukraine. Because every one of us thought that could be us next. And that is what Taiwan lives with every single day. And I want to remind not just the American people, but the world. If you thought what happened with Russia and Ukraine shook the world, just imagine what would happen if China moved in on Taiwan. You would have 10% of global GDP affected. That's $10 trillion that would shake every single economy. To put that into perspective, the Russia-Ukraine crisis was only $1.5 trillion. So you're looking at almost 10 times the effect that we would have if that should happen. The impressive side of it was that you don't hear the Taiwanese complaining. They're not pretending to be victims. They're not sitting there waiting for something to happen. They are acting every single day to not wait on the rest of the world, but to make sure that they deter anything that would cause them problems. And what I was impressed with immediately, because you don't see this from many countries, they have doubled their defense spending. They know what their priorities are. They also know that they have started military and citizen exercises, making sure their military is doing simulations to be ready, but making sure their citizens are also ready and empowering them so that they know what to expect. They've changed the mandatory military service from 4 months to 1 year. That's no longer a commitment by the Taiwanese government. That's a commitment by the Taiwanese people. And the fact that they are willing to do this patriotic duty, to start putting a year of training into it, goes to show that they are all taking this seriously. And the one stunning statistic that I saw more than anything else was that the Taiwanese since 2010 have changed their Chinese investment and dropped it from 84% down to 11%. Now, if that's not a free people acknowledging the reality of the threat that they face, they are more aware than anywhere else in the world. I would challenge every other country to drop their Chinese investment the same way the Taiwanese have dropped theirs. Because every time we invest in doing business with China, we are investing in the bullying. We are investing in the isolation that they're causing. We are investing in all of the atrocities that they continue to do for the Chinese people, but also for what they're trying to do to the Taiwanese. So what does that mean for the way forward? What should we do? I think this is a wake-up call, and we should learn the lessons of what happened with Russia and Ukraine. Don't wait for something to happen. Let's get in front of it. Let's start showing our strength as free democracies, and let's come together. And I think the way that we do that is we have to strengthen ourselves. We have to strengthen our military, our economic, and our diplomatic ties. How do we do that? I think the United States should immediately increase its training that we do with the Taiwanese military on all aspects. I also think that we should increase the amount of weapons that we send to Taiwan so that they can be prepared. I think the next thing we need to do is, when you look at an economic situation, we have an amazing partner in Taiwan. We should enact a free trade agreement immediately, because by doing that, not only does that help Taiwan, it helps the United States. And we'd much rather do business with our friends than we would with our enemies. We should strengthen the alliance with India, Japan, South Korea, Australia, the Philippines, and make sure that we all come together and say, what are we doing to decrease the Chinese investment? What are we doing to increase training with Taiwan? What are we doing to make sure that we're doing everything we can to acknowledge that Taiwan does exist? And I think we need to go to all of our multilateral organizations and demand that Taiwan get observer status. Look at what happened with COVID. This is the perfect example of moral clarity. You had Taiwan that tried to warn the entire world of the dangers that were coming from China with COVID. And then you had the Chinese Communist Party, who tried to hide it from the entire world because they didn't want to be the only country that suffered. That's the difference. And if the UN can acknowledge Palestinians as an observer state, I call on the United Nations to acknowledge Taiwan as an observer state. And I call on all free countries to join us in saying that the time is now. If nothing else, we owe a debt of gratitude to Taiwan for trying to remind the world and let the world know the dangers of COVID coming out of China. Why is it that the United Nations has yet to call out China on what they did to the world? Millions of people died. We all lost relatives because of China's arrogance, because their secrecy, and because of the fact that they are a threat around the world. And we look at what happened with Ukraine and what has happened with China. China and Russia have held hands and said they are now unlimited partners. So if China is okay with what Russia did to Ukraine, that means Russia is going to be okay with what China might do to Taiwan. And we can't be okay with that. And finally, I think it's time that we call on all social media platforms to acknowledge the fact, Meta in particular, to acknowledge the fact that the algorithms encourage the Communist Chinese Party's talking points and suppress the Taiwanese. Meta owes it to us to show us the algorithms. Why is it that the Taiwanese talking points are suppressed? Why is it that the Chinese Communist Party's talking points are increased? I will continue to say, I think the United States and Taiwan and all free countries need to follow India's lead and ban TikTok once and for all. It is incredibly dangerous. TikTok is the cheapest form of warfare that China uses to spread misinformation and manipulation, whether it's in elections or whether it's to increase the value of what they want the Chinese Communist Party to be and to reduce democracies around the world. So this, I will tell you, has been an amazing trip, full of just real highlights of all that the Taiwanese people are doing, all that we need to be doing to partner with them, and all that I think the world needs to see. The countries that realize that they need to partner with Taiwan are going to be the countries that move forward. Those that try and follow China's lead are going to be the ones that are left behind. China will not be there for you. Taiwan will be there for you. And I came away from this trip knowing that it is not that Taiwan needs America. It is that America needs Taiwan. Thank you, and I'll open it up for any questions that you have. Yes, sir.
Thank you. I'm Ben Blanchard from Reuters. President Trump seriously unnerved Taiwan a couple of weeks ago with some comments he made about how Taiwan paid for its defense, made Taiwan stolen US semiconductor business. Have you been given a message by the Taiwan government to pass on to President Trump? Or if not, when you get back to the United States, you plan a meeting with Donald Trump to discuss what you saw here and what you were told during your visit to Taiwan?
The Taiwanese government did not imply or want me to pass along anything. I think, if anything, I will tell you that it is an amazing partnership when the U.S. can design and Taiwan can manufacture. That's exactly the kind of partnership that we want. We want to partner with free countries. And that I would much rather us do business with our friends than do business with our enemies. So I will tell you, I think that the chip production partnership that we have between the U.S. and Taiwan is not only one that is strong, it's one that we need to strengthen further. I also think that it is not about asking Taiwan to pay for their defense. Taiwan has placed multiple orders for military equipment. It is the fact that we need to increase our partnership and training with them, and we need to make sure that they are a priority when we give them the equipment that they need. There is a way to balance this out. But what I came away with is Taiwan is not looking for a handout. Taiwan is not looking for anyone to protect them. They're looking for partners. And the U.S. would be smart to partner with Taiwan, as would all free countries going forward. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Chris Buckley from the New York Times. You mentioned a number of times, including your speech earlier in the week, about strengthening military ties with Taiwan. I'm wondering what you think a future U.S. administration, I think you probably want a Republican administration, should do on that front. How far should the U.S. be willing to go? For example, do you think the U.S. should support a substantial troop presence on Taiwan? Should the U.S. consider extending its nuclear umbrella to Taiwan? Thank you.
I think the first thing we need to do is it's all about deterrence. And the best way we can go and help Taiwan now is to make sure that we ramp up our training exercises with Taiwan. We've got good exercises going. Let's do more. Let's ramp up our intelligence sharing. I think that that's going to be valuable. Let's do something so that we can partner on countering the cyber attacks that China continues to do. Taiwan's not the only one threatened by those cyber attacks. Let's make sure that we really call out China in multilateral organizations so that the rest of the world acknowledges the harm that China is doing to Taiwan and what they're trying to do, you know, in the Taiwan Strait and the South China Sea. We need to acknowledge that's happening in the gray zones. I think there are a lot of things that we can be doing and that we can be doing in a stronger way. And so I look at it more as, what do we need to do to partner? How do we go about partnering in a way that's beneficial for both? I don't think that this is a situation where we need to put troops on the ground in Taiwan, and they're not asking for that. I think that's what's important. What they are asking for is more partnership, and that's what we need to do. But I also think we could partner with them on what do they need. They need more unmanned, you know, vehicles. They need to make sure that we have drones. They need to make sure that we have anti-air, anti-missile equipment. We need to make sure that they have that. We went to a naval base yesterday. It was highly impressive to see what they're doing with their shipbuilding, but also what they're doing with their training there. And, you know, I will tell you, Taiwan is full speed ahead on making sure they're doing everything to protect themselves. They're not looking for aggression against Taiwan. They are looking to make sure that if China does, they're not looking for deterrence against aggression from China. And they're not looking to start anything with China. But what they are looking is to make sure that if China starts a fight with them, that they're prepared to make sure that they can fight back. And I think America needs to join them in that. But I don't think we need to go and do anything that's overt. I think what we need to do is just partner. Yes. Yes.
The Democratic Party has revealed to Taiwan and citizen sharing into the charter, while the Republican Party did not do so at the July national convention. So I'm just wondering, in your opinion, does it signify a difference of stances on Taiwan between the two parties? And also on the topic of U.S. politics, we have seen a resurgence from the Democratic parties in smaller resurgence President Biden's position to run for the election. Do you think former President Trump still has potential over this competitive?
So I think not only is Taiwan important, I think Ukraine is important, I think Israel is important. I think that, you know, what I want to see the Republican Party talk about is freedom, standing with our allies, and making sure that, you know, we show strength around the world. We don't want to see communist China win. We don't want to see Russia win. We don't want to see Iran or North Korea win. And right now we are seeing our enemies partner together, and I want to see our allies partner together. And so, you know, I think there's only so much you can put in a platform, but I think Republicans have shown they stand with Taiwan. We have seen that. And frankly, Democrats have shown they stand with Taiwan. And I think if there's any one thing that both parties agree on, and there's not much that they agree on right now in this political cycle, they agree on the threats of China. And they agree on the fact that China is more harmful than not. What I want to see Republicans and Democrats is do something about it. Don't just talk about it, let's do something about it. In terms of the election, I think Donald Trump had a good week at his convention. I think Kamala Harris had a good week at her convention. Now the game's on. You know, this is where it's 70 plus days, and they are going to have to go and tell the American people what their solutions are going to be. And so conventions are all parties about nice, good talking points, but now the rubber meets the road, and they have to really start showing the American people what they're going to do differently than what the American people feel now. And so we'll wait and see what happens. Yes.
Big jump on the Washington Post. Maybe just a follow-up question about what it has to say. Former Vice President Mike Pence had this conversation open on Washington Post. He's been warning that there is a strand of isolation emerging within the Republican Party, and he's calling on the party to stay in Taiwan. How would you address such concern, and do you share the same concern?
You know, I think that I said this during my campaign, and I strongly believe America can never be so arrogant to think they don't need friends. And in order to get friends, you have to be a friend. And I think now The world is in a situation where they don't know where we stand. Under the Biden administration, we saw Afghanistan fall. Under the Biden administration, we saw Russia invade Ukraine. Under the Biden administration, we've watched multiple foreign policy issues. We saw Hamas invade Israel. All of those things happened under the Biden administration because they didn't see strength. Our enemies smelled weakness, and when they smell blood in the water, they move, and we've seen that happen over and over again. If anything, America needs to stand up. That doesn't mean you have to stand up and put troops on the ground and militarily do something. We just have to speak, because what we know is when America speaks, the world listens. When America does, the world follows. And so we've got to make sure that America continues to speak for the right things. I don't think the isolationist approach is healthy. I think America can never sit in a bubble and think that we won't be affected. And when any authoritarian regime, when communists go and bully, harm, or hurt any of other free countries, that should be personal for us. And so what I want to see is the United States realize that it's not that we should give foreign aid to everyone in the world. I actually disagree with that. I think that America has not handled foreign aid well. But when it comes to our friends and when it comes to free democracies, there should be no question that the United States should stand with them unwavering, unapologetic, and ready to defend them at any given time. Yes.
In your speech at the Taiwan, in your speech at the Taiwan Forum, you kind of made a case for a heavy U.S. presence in the world, pointing to alliances, strengthening alliances in support for Ukraine and Taiwan. Endorsing Donald Trump for president seems to have maybe different views on that issue, but do you think a second Donald Trump presidency would bring U.S. closer to that role they're envisioning rather than a Harris administration would?
I think that what I have seen, I served with Donald Trump in the administration, and so it's not what I think, it's what I witnessed. And what I know is that we did show American strength in the world. And you saw that we pushed back against China. We put more sanctions on Russia than any other administration. We got ourselves out of the Iran deal. We put more sanctions on North Korea than, any time in a generation. And so I think that all of that strength that we showed is the reason that we didn't see any wars, we didn't see any invasions, we didn't see any harm that happened during that time. I think Donald Trump would bring that back. What I would assume is Kamala Harris is going to do exactly what Joe Biden has done. She was part of the administration. When Afghanistan fell, when Hamas invaded Israel, when Russia invaded Ukraine, where was Kamala Harris? She was in the Situation Room right next to Joe Biden. She was there making the exact same decisions. Those decisions have made the world less safe. And so what I want to see is strength. I want to see strength from free countries. I want to see strength for democracies, and I want to see stronger alliances. And I think that's the part that I know that Donald Trump would bring, and that's why I think we would be safer with Donald Trump as president. Yes, sir.
I represent the Associated Press. Thank you for taking my question. My question is, how do you see the next U.S. administration, be Harris or Trump, reshape the U.S.-China relations and the consequences that Taiwan will take?
I think that under a Trump administration, I think that we would see more accountability. We would hold China to account. I think that's what happened in the last Trump administration. I think that's what would happen going forward. I think trade would be more strained because I think that we realize that China uses their trade in ways that aren't helpful to free democracies. I think under the Harris administration, they have shown themselves to not want to rock the boat. I think that they would, while I do believe that they would stand with Taiwan, I don't think that they would hold China to account. And so I think that the softness that we have seen from the Biden administration would carry on through a Harris administration. Yes.
You said President Lai in our national security officials this time, and from your conversation with them, do you think that they were sending a similar message on China and its pressure, or do you think the message is
Well, I was very impressed with President Lai. Whenever you have a leader, you want a leader that speaks the truth. You want a leader that's bold. You want a leader that shows courage. And you want a leader that is determined to protect their people. I saw every bit of that in President Lai. His ability to call out the threats of China And his ability to not just sit back, but to actually be proactive in how to protect the Taiwanese people was impressive. And he does it with a very good attitude. He does it with the fact that we've got a lot of work to do and we're going to keep on doing it. And so, you know, whether it was President Lai or his administration, everyone I found to be very focused. I found them all to be determined. I found them all to be mission-oriented. And I found them all to be on the same page. And I think that shows the signs of a good, strong administration. And so I was very pleasantly surprised that while it hasn't been that long of this administration, they really are hitting the ground running. They're very much focused on what they need to do to not just protect themselves from China, but what do they need to do to grow Taiwan from an economic standpoint? What do they need to do to improve the quality of life for the Taiwanese people? Their whole focus is not China. A priority is China, but the main focus is how do they lift up the lives of the Taiwanese people, and that was incredibly impressive to see that they're moving forward in spite the bullying that's happening from China. Yes.
Following that question, because there are some reports that a person in Washington are nervous to interact with President Lai because they think there may be lack of diplomatic experience. So after this visit to Taiwan, did you feel they need to be nervous with exactly President Lai's visit?
I mean, what I hope that we will see from elected officials in D.C. is this is not a time to be soft. This is a time for a strong spine. I would like to see more elected officials visit Taiwan. I would like to see more elected officials stand up and call on the UN that if you're going to give the enormous amount of money that the U.S. gives to the UN, we should demand observer status for Taiwan. We should demand that Taiwan be in the World Health Organization. I think Congress on both sides, Republicans and Democrats, owe it to Taiwan to not just tell them in back rooms they support them, but stand together at a podium and say, not only do we support Taiwan, these are the actions we're going to take. I call on the next administration to do a free trade agreement. That's the best way we can show China that we are not deterred by what they do. And so this is a time where I would say stop the talk and start with the action, and not just for the U.S., but for free countries everywhere. It is time that Taiwan get their due, and it's time for everyone to stand with them and prove it. Yes.
Julia from CNA, and in your speech 2 days ago, you mentioned that Taiwan should be the full member of the UN, and now it's observer states. And is there any thought process difference, or what's your opinion on that?
I would love to see them as a full member. I just know that the UN is a farce. The UN is, you know, they like to say that they are that they have moral clarity, and they lack that in a strong way. I think Taiwan deserves full status at the UN, but I think the least we should get is observer status. That's the main thing, is think about the hypocrisy that the United Nations fights every day for what they claim as human rights, yet you're going to act like 24 million people don't exist? And here, they are all saying that they don't want to say anything about Taiwan because of a UN resolution years ago. The UN resolution never mentioned Taiwan. So why did you allow the Chinese Communist Party to hijack a resolution and claim it's about Taiwan? I want the United Nations to show me in that resolution where it mentions Taiwan. And that is why they should be giving status to Taiwan. It's because it's not even listed in the resolution. And so I would ask all of you, knock on the door of the Security Council and the Secretary General, and don't stop until they give us an answer for this. If Taiwan's not listed in the resolution, if you just gave observer status to the Palestinians, why do you not allow Taiwan in the World Health Organization when they were the ones that tried to save the world? They deserve at least that. Why do you not acknowledge Taiwan in terms of at the UN when we look at all the semiconductor chip production that the whole world benefits from? Why would you ignore, you know, a free people that are really providing so much good in the world? That's the part that I see, is that it's really offensive that the UN says that. You know, I saw it, the UN, I fought hard to have the Taiwanese people just be allowed to get into the building of the UN. They're not even allowed in the building. No Taiwanese elected officials are allowed in the building. No journalists are allowed in the building. No students are allowed in the building. And so we fought to have that happen, and we made inroads, and it was about to happen until the Chinese threw a temper tantrum, caused fear in the Secretary General, and he caved. But if that's the case, where's the human rights in that? Because it doesn't make sense. And so, look, I think that there's a lot of hypocrisy at the UN, but they can start clearing their name if they just start focusing on Taiwan and saying this is a wrong that we need to make right, and we're going to go forward. Who hasn't been called on? Yes.
I'm Julie from Taiwan, and with the upcoming United Nations General Assembly, I'm curious that what additional methods do you think Taiwan can use to clarify the misunderstanding surrounding resolution and implementation?
I think that Taiwan should request a hearing on 2758. I think the U.S. should join them in requesting that hearing. I would call on all of our democratic allies, you know, all free countries everywhere, to join them to at least be heard on the topic, at least acknowledge the topic, because, you know, the Security Council and the General Assembly, they should be an open discussion. The whole point of the UN is to have countries come together and all agree on a way forward. And I think Taiwan deserves to have their day. And I think that that's something that needs to happen. And so I hope in the General Assembly, even if it is a sidebar event, I think that there should be an event on Taiwan, not just to talk about them getting status at the UN, but to talk about the harassment they're facing every single day from China and what the UN countries think that Taiwan should do about it. Yes.
I know you one with the Wall Street Journal, and good to see you again.
Yes.
Just a quick question back on, you know, the military collaboration between the U.S. and Taiwan. I mean, after, you know, weeks of meeting with Taiwanese officials, do you get a sense of, you know, what's their priorities, or, you know, the sense of like urgency that they would need the U.S. to help on, and to what extent that you think the U.S. should do, and if we're not to that point yet, what do you think about the obstacle that, you know, sort of like hindering us from going to that point?
I very much sensed the urgency from Taiwanese officials, not in a panicked way, but in a way that they are moving forward on their part through military exercises, through increased training, through making sure that they're dealing with these cyber attacks. But they want friends. Taiwan wants partners in this, and I think they would like to see, they're very grateful for the United States and the collaboration that we have, but they would like more. And I join them in that. I would like to see more training happen. I would like to see more intelligence sharing. I would like to see us do more trade with them. You know, economic power is military power, and I think that's the best way the U.S. could work with Taiwan now, is let's increase our economic activity with each other, because it's a win-win situation. So I did sense that they very much want to see more collaboration. They do need to see the backlog of, you know, weapons move forward. I think that's something that they feel. But they also want to be a partner. They want to know what is it that they can manufacture here that will help the United States. I think that's a great collaboration that needs to happen. And so what I would hope is that the U.S. would also make Taiwan a priority, the way Taiwan is making their partnership with the U.S. a priority. But it's also nice to see Taiwan is building partnerships with many countries around the world and increasing their economic engagement with other countries around the world. And so I would hope that between Japan, South Korea, India, Australia, the Philippines, that we really lift that up even further to see what else we could do together.
All right, one more, guys.
Yes, I think we haven't called on.
Following the UN State discussion, how do you think can we join the UN? Do you think should we join it as ROC for Taiwan?
Well, I mean, I think that knowing the temper tantrum that China would have, you know, I think they would have one either way. I think that's up to the Taiwanese to decide. I don't think the U.S. should in any way tell Taiwan what to do. I don't think whether it's status, whether it's anything else, I think the U.S. should be a friend to Taiwan. And whatever Taiwan does, we should support them in that. And so whatever the Taiwanese government would decide, I think America should support them and rally around them and make sure that that happens. I want to thank you for taking the time. I will tell you that these messages that we have, we are going forward. We're going to take them and show them to Americans. Yes, sir, did you?
Excuse me, could I just clarify, what status are you speaking in visiting Taiwan? Is this like a more personal visit, or are you representing the Republican Party, or how do we describe it?
So I'm doing this in collaboration with the Hudson Institute. So now I'm one of the chairs of the Hudson Institute, and so a lot of what we do is work on freedom and democracy and spreading facts around around our country to members of Congress, to the American people, but also working with our allies. So it's within that realm that I'm here.
So are you planning to meet with President Trump when you get back on his feet to discuss what you saw while you were in Taiwan?
I mean, yes. I mean, well, not necessarily meet with his team directly. What you will see me do is do multiple TV interviews. You will see us probably do an op-ed. You will see us send messages to Congress and to, the administration on what we saw and continue to get that word forward. Look, I'm going to always use the power of my voice. I am going to continue to be loud about the things that I care about. I fought for Taiwan at the UN. I fought for freedom and human rights when I was there. I have always fought to improve the quality of life for free countries, and I think that's the focus that I'll continue to do. But thank you very much for the time, and we look forward to visiting Taiwan again soon.